everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Vanessa and today I'm going to be showing you guys my gluten-free plain bagel recipe. Now, just a quick little side note that I want to say in the beginning of this video. Pretty much, if you guys have tried gluten-free baking, it is very difficult. We basically have to We basically have to rewire our entire brains from what we've ever known on baking. It's kind of weird the way that things turn out, and I know that in my videos it can be a little bit frustrating because I mostly talk about texture, and that can be very difficult when you're so used to following, because I'm the same way, measurements, you know, especially when it comes to baking. Baking is like a science that it has to be the measurements like to a T, and with gluten-free baking it's so different than that. So a few things with gluten-free baking: don't be afraid to overmix. I know that we're constantly told don't overmix, but with gluten-free baking, it's completely different. You guys can overmix, and it's very forgiving as much as it is difficult, but it is very forgiving, meaning that you guys can add to and it would work out the exact same way. So also a hard part to learn with all of this is when I constantly talk about texture, because it depends on what you use and how you use it. Everything can be different, if that makes sense. So for an example, with this recipe, I used this gluten-free flour. This is one that I got from Smart & Final, and I'm recommending this one specifically. Everything else, Bob's Red Mill, King Arthur, I don't know how they'll turn out. Maybe you guys can try it, and if it turns out great, leave it down below, and we all learn from each other. But this is what I mean. If you don't use this, when I talk about texture, because each one is made different ways with different things, it's not just normal all-purpose flour, you may get a different texture with the same measurements than I had. And so when I tell you, oh, do a little bit stickier than Play-Doh, it's honestly what I mean. I know that that is very frustrating and we're so used to learning measurements, but like I said, we basically have to like redo everything that we've ever known. I know how frustrating it is, so I apologize to you guys when it comes to like my bread video, which if you guys haven't seen, I will link for you guys, because to me that's the best bread that I've ever made and I enjoy it, but that just might be me tooting my own horn. But I'm trying to explain it the best way that I know how, because I mean, I have tons of cookbooks and I've attempted what they've written down and I followed it to a T, and it didn't turn out the way that it said it was going to, or I didn't have that flour, or I couldn't find that flour, and I tried a different one and it turned out horrible. So there's times where I don't follow the recipe to a T and it turns out great. And then there's times where I follow the recipe to a T and it turns out really wrong. So that's what I mean. When it comes to baking, gluten-free baking, please just try to understand that it's a learning curve, and I know that it is so frustrating to have a disease where you have to basically redo everything that we've ever known to be normal and have to redo everything and have to teach ourselves a different way. I know it can be very frustrating, but please understand that sometimes it's just, when I'm telling you a texture, it's honestly what I mean. So whether that is, you know, 3 cups, 4 cups, you go and do what you need to do to get the right texture, if that makes sense. So just 2 things, just remember it's okay to overmix, and another is it's frustrating, but it's mostly a texture when I talk about it in my videos. So I'm sorry, I know it's very frustrating. Please, you could take your frustrations out on me. I understand. I'm the one who's practicing these recipes and I get it. It's very frustrating, and I know that my explaining may be a little bit different, but like I said, we just need to kind of rework everything to understand how gluten-free baking works. Now, I don't know the science behind it, but I know what I know. But I'm just letting you guys know, this is what I recommend. So if you don't have this one, like I said, Smart & Final, and it is a little bit pricey, I'm not gonna lie to you. You guys can try the other ones, but I can't promise the way that it is going to turn out. So I'm just letting you guys know, this is what I recommend, but there are other gluten-free flours out there that you can go ahead and give this a shot to. But without further ado, because I know that that's not why you guys clicked on this video, is to hear me rant. So if you would like to see how I make my gluten-free bagels, then go ahead and keep on watching. Now this recipe is a bit of a doozy, so if I miss anything or I don't go over anything, please make sure to check the description box. I will have all the measurements and instructions down there, so just in case I miss anything. So first things first, we're going to want to preheat the oven, and we're not doing it to bake, we're doing it because these have to proof. So I set mine up to 200, and then I'm going to turn the heat off right away and let the temperature come back down. It's just to get it warm enough. And then just like in the bread recipe, we're going to do about 1 2/3 cups of warm water. Once again, we want it to be at 100 to 110. It's the same thing as the bread recipe. And then to that, we're going to add a full packet of yeast, and we're going to do the instant yeast. I'm not sure how Rapid would do with this, but we ended up using the instant, the red pack, and then we're also going to add a tablespoon of sugar. So then you're going to mix that up together, and you're going to wait for it to froth. I'll show you in a second here, it frothing. And then we are going to melt some butter. You can melt it in the microwave, but to me it's just easier to melt it over the stove here. And we're going to do about 3 tablespoons. And the moment it starts to melt, I don't want this to boil or anything. I just want it to melt, and then we're going to take it right off the heat. I think I actually ended up taking it off right before it was done melting. I think I turned off the heat. But yeah, that's what we're going to want to do with the butter. Make sure it's not too hot. And once the yeast mixture is frothy like this, then we are going to add the melted butter to it. Just make sure that it's cooled down and not too hot. We don't want to kill the yeast. And then we're going to add a teaspoon of molasses. Now, I like honey with it better. The molasses has more of a bitter taste, and I kind of like the sweetness to it. So you can pick and choose what you want. You can do corn syrup if you don't have molasses. This is molasses, but to be honest, I choose honey. But that's completely up to you and your taste buds. But a teaspoon of whatever sweetener to your choice. That's what the yeast is going to eat. And then we're going to give it a nice little whisk, and then we're going to set it aside and start to work on the dry ingredients. I said ingredients. Now to this, there's a whole bunch. So like I said, if I miss it, check down below. But we are going to add about 3 2/3 cups of flour to this, all-purpose flour. Now I did end up putting in another cup of flour eventually because I didn't like the texture. So I would say a total of 4 cups and then 2/3 of a cup, if that makes sense. So that's what I did end up adding to this. It once again depends on what you use and what kind of flour you use. And then we're also going to add some xanthum gum, some salt, baking soda, baking powder, and anything that I am missing right now. The measurements will be down below because it's kind of like weird measurements. But yes, and then we're going to give this a quick whisk all together and put down the sides just in case we don't want too much of, like, let's say the xanthum gum or something to start to ball up on the side. We want it to be well combined. So you can stop every so often and kind of push everything back down and give it a nice and good whisk. Now, if you don't have a stand mixer, you should be okay with a hand mixer. Our hand mixer, though, for some reason, is insane. So we can't use it, but luckily we have a stand mixer that helps us, but ours is way too fast. Otherwise, our dough goes everywhere. And basically what we're going to do is add the wet ingredients to the dry ingredients, and then we're going to just let it go. I think we moved it up to about medium speed. And then we want it to start to stick to the sides and everything. Now, if it is too gummy, please add more flour slowly though. I would say add like 1/4 each time and give a little whisk. And make sure it's well combined before you stop it. That's the only way to kind of save some of this, because sometimes it turns out to be way too sticky. And we don't want that. It should be able to move around in your hands. So kind of like cookie dough, or kind of like I always say, like a sticky Play-Doh. Right here is when we realized that it started to turn into more of a whip, and we didn't like that. So we ended up adding the extra cup of flour. So that's what I mean. I'm giving you the measurements on flour texture or flour measurements, but if it's not coming out right, and you'll see the texture in a second of what you need, just add like 1/4 of a cup slowly of different flours, or different, of your flour choice. and then give it a quick little whisk. That way we're not over mixing it, which it doesn't matter if we do, but we don't want to like, you know, keep getting sticky and sticky dough. And before you know it, we have like double the amount of flour and not the same measurements as everything else. Does that make sense? I'll stop talking. I can go on a rant for this for days. As you can tell, this recipe really irritated me, but we got it. So yes, all the measurements down below, but just know that's what we ended up doing. We did about 4.5, I'd say, cups of flour total. And then you want to get a baking sheet and put on some plastic wrap. And then this is the texture I'm talking about. You see my husband's hand? Yes, I'm having my husband do it because I have nails. And if not, you guys are going to be like, oh my God, your nails are getting covered in dough. But pretty much this is the texture we want it to be. Kind of like Play-Doh. Maybe a little bit stickier. But you see how his fingers aren't like covered in dough? This is what we want right here. That is beautiful. Great texture. Everything that we need. And then we should be able to roll it out. We don't want it too dry though. So if it's too dry, it needs a little bit more moisture. So that's what I mean. Just kind of play it by ear. Getting it to stick together like this was kind of a pain in the butt, but for the most part, it did good. And I'm sorry if my voice range is going in and out. It's because I'm recording and eventually like my mouth just finds its way to the actual microphone. And then before you know it, I'm super close. So I apologize if my voice range is all over the place. So pretty much then we're going to put them on a baking rack and we are going to slowly and carefully cover with saran wrap because this is my arch enemy right here. I hate saran wrap, but we're going to loosely cover it. And then we're going to throw it in the turned off 200-degree oven. Remember, we don't want it too hot. And then we're going to let them just kind of sit in there for a little bit. I want to say that we did it for about... you know what? I'll leave the time down below because I can't remember. I want to say it was only like 10 minutes. And you'll see them rise. But yeah, I think. If not, check down below. The time that we left them in there it'll be in there. And then actually what I ended up doing with whatever was left over is we ended up making little balls, little bagel balls. And to be honest, these were great. I love these. I would rather make bagel balls than bagels, but it was just something fun that we decided to do. So you can make them any way that you want. And then after that, we take them out. And this was the funnest part for me. So before we get to boiling, we're going to preheat the oven to about 425, and then it's this part. We got a big old pot of water. We put some baking soda in there. I want to say it was a tablespoon, and we let it come to a boil. I love this part. You literally see these things come to life. You let them boil for about a minute total, minute on each side. It depends on, what you want and how much yours fluffs up. But you literally see it turn into this perfectly circled dough. And then it gets this texture to it. Like, do you see it? It starts to look like bread, like literally in front of your eyes. I'm still just so amazed. Like, look, it goes in, and then all of a sudden you start to see these crinkles form, and you literally can see it. Oh my God, I loved this part. It was so crazy. Like, of course, I've had to practice this recipe a few times to make sure that I got it right. But it just amazes me every single time that I've never made bagels before. I've only made gluten-free bagels. And just look at it. It's so cute. It's so exciting. I'm so in love with it. Ugh. But yeah, pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to boil these, like I said, 30 minutes to a minute on each side. And then we're going to take them out and put them on another thing of foiled wrap baking sheet. Foil wrap, that's what we ended up doing. I don't know how wax paper and stuff would do, but we just let them sit on there and let them rest. Now, if you want to add like everything seasoning, I do end up doing that to one of them. I put everything bagel seasoning on there. You can do whatever you want if you want to top them with stuff. You can do like onion, you can do salt and pepper, you can literally do whatever you want. Have fun with it. If you want to put like little raisins on it or anything, go for it. I'm gonna have other videos coming out that have like how to actually make everything bagels or onion bagels or cinnamon bagel. Like I'm gonna have other ones coming out, but this one's just a plain one right now. but it is very versatile. You guys can literally have so much fun with it. And yeah, so after that, we're gonna transfer them to that cookie sheet, and then we're gonna get them ready to go back into the oven. That's the thing. This one has a whole bunch of steps to it. And as you can see, I'm adding the everything bagel seasoning on the top of just one, just because I wanted you guys to see what you can do if you want to. And I even did this with the little balls. So that's what I mean. Go for it. Have fun. Be creative. Do you. And then we're going to throw them back into the oven. Like I said, it was 425, and we're going to put them in there for about 15 minutes. We want to see them start to get golden brown and things like that. Make sure that the rack is kind of on the middle rack. We don't want them to burn, but we also need them to cook. And once they are golden brown, then we're gonna take them out, put them on a cooling rack, and we're gonna let them just chill. I know it's hard. I know we've been waiting for something for so long, gluten-free bagels, good ones, and we wanna jump into them, but we have to be a little bit patient, just a little bit, and then they're ready. Look at the way that these turned out. Aren't they gorgeous? Like, oh my God, they are so good. You can make your own cream cheese. You can go buy cream cheese. You know what? You do you. But just look at that golden baby. That's the everything one. It looks a little funny because all the seasoning's in the middle. And those are the balls. Look at how cute these are. You guys have to give these a try and let me know how you like them. I hope you guys enjoy. I am so excited that I get to have a bagel. It makes me want them. I still have some in my fridge. I'm gonna go eat. And that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you liked it, please give me a big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you guys haven't already. But if not, that's fine. You're welcome back anytime. I have a whole bunch of gluten-free videos that I will leave linked in a playlist down below for you guys, so you guys can go ahead and check them out. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.